Fear. It's one of the oldest tools of power known to humanity. Kingdoms have risen with it, revolutions have been crushed by it, and entire civilizations have obeyed in silence because of it. But few figures in culture, or even in history, have embodied fear as perfectly as Darth Vader. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need long speeches or endless explanations. His silence was enough. His breathing alone could freeze a room. One step into the chamber, and the most ambitious officers of the Empire trembled. That wasn't an accident, it was strategy. So here's the question. Why does fear work so well as a tool of leadership, and why was Vader its perfect master? In this video, we'll break down the ruthless psychology of fear, why it commands attention, why it shapes obedience, and why it can build empires faster than love ever could. And by the end, you'll understand how the Empire used fear not only as a weapon, but as the foundation of control. But be warned, this isn't just about Star Wars. These same tactics appear in real life, at work, in politics, and even in personal relationships. Before we dive in, subscribe right now and tell me in the comments, would you rather be loved or feared? Most people believe leadership is about being liked. They imagine that approval naturally leads to respect, and that if people admire you, they will follow you. But history and psychology tell a different story. Approval is fragile. It changes with moods, with gossip, with shifting alliances. The moment admiration fades, loyalty collapses with it. Fear, however, is different. Fear is not based on affection, but on survival. You don't have to like someone to obey them. You just need to know the cost of disobedience. That's why fear often produces faster, more consistent results than love ever can. It bypasses debate and forces immediate compliance. Think about your own life. You may have respected a boss, a teacher, or even a parent who treated you kindly, but chances are the person you never dared to cross wasn't the one who was nicest to you. It was the one who enforced consequences. That reaction is wired into human psychology. Our brains are built to avoid pain more urgently than they are to seek pleasure. This is the brutal truth the Empire understood, and it's the reason Darth Vader's presence was so effective. He didn't beg for loyalty. He didn't negotiate for respect. He made disobedience unthinkable. The problem is, most of us underestimate how powerful this is until we find ourselves under the command of someone who doesn't. Darth Vader wasn't born a monster. He began as Anakin Skywalker, a gifted pilot, a celebrated warrior, and a hero of the Republic. People loved him. They trusted him. But love alone wasn't enough to save him from betrayal, loss, and the hunger for control. What emerged from that transformation was no longer the boy with hope in his eyes, but the black-armored figure who became the very embodiment of fear. Vader's leadership wasn't built on speeches or promises. It was built on reputation. Stories spread faster than his footsteps. Officers whispered about how a single failure could end with a crushing grip from his hand. Entire rooms fell silent when they heard the sound of his breathing. He didn't have to speak, his presence was the message. The Empire understood this perfectly. Vader wasn't just a commander. He was a symbol, a living weapon of fear. His mask, his mechanical breath, his towering silhouette. They weren't just functional, they were psychological tools. They reminded everyone, friend and foe alike, that resistance was pointless, that the cost of failure was death, and that obedience was survival. Think about what that means. The Death Star was the ultimate weapon of mass destruction, capable of obliterating entire planets. But Vader himself became a kind of Death Star in human form. His very existence was a warning: disobey, and you will be destroyed. And this wasn't just about raw violence, it was about control. He didn't need to punish everyone, just enough to make sure that the fear echoed through the ranks. It's the same principle leaders throughout history have used: punish publicly, and others will police themselves. That's how Darth Vader became more than a villain in a story. He became a lesson in how fear, when embodied in a single person, can dominate entire systems. So why does fear work so effectively as a tool of leadership? To answer that, we have to step into psychology. The first truth is simple: fear narrows attention. When people are afraid, their brain goes into survival mode. They stop thinking about possibilities, options, or alternatives, and focus only on the threat in front of them. For a leader, that's incredibly powerful. It means fewer questions, fewer challenges, and more obedience. Vader didn't need debates in the war room. His presence alone kept people aligned. The second truth Fear defines boundaries. Fear draws a line in the sand that everyone can see. When Vader executed an officer for failure, he wasn't just punishing one man, he was teaching everyone else exactly where the boundaries were. Fear doesn't leave room for negotiation. It carves rules into the mind more deeply than any manual or policy ever could. The third truth: fear amplifies memory. Psychologists know that negative emotions leave stronger and longer-lasting imprints on the human brain than positive ones. People may forget a compliment, but they never forget humiliation. They may forget a promise, but they never forget punishment. Vader's punishments were swift, public, and unforgettable, which meant his presence lived rent-free in the minds of his subordinates long after he left the room. But here's the paradox: fear is also corrosive. While it creates obedience, it destroys loyalty. People who follow out of fear don't dream of serving you forever. They dream of escaping you. Fear makes people efficient, but it also makes them resentful, paranoid, and quick to turn against you when the chance comes. And this is where the Empire reveals the double edge of fear. It's fast, effective, and absolute, but it is never stable. Vader could silence a room, but he could never buy true loyalty. And in the end, the cracks that fear creates often lead to collapse. Darth Vader's reign of fear may belong to fiction, but the psychology behind it is real, and it shows up everywhere. From workplaces to politics to family dynamics, the rules of fear-based leadership can be seen in action. Let's break them down into 3 laws. Law 1: silence speaks louder than words. Vader rarely shouted. He didn't need to. His silence, his breathing, his presence, these created more pressure than 1,000 words ever could. Silence is a canvas, and fear paints it with imagination. People imagine consequences harsher than anything you might say. Application: in your life, don't always rush to explain yourself. If someone disrespects you, sometimes silence and a firm gaze carry more weight than endless justification. Silence leaves others guessing, and guessing is often scarier than certainty. Law 2: consequences must be immediate. Vader didn't wait weeks to respond to failure. The punishment was instant, undeniable, and public. It was terrifying but effective. His officers learned fast. The cost of mistakes was too high to risk. Application: boundaries only exist if you enforce them. If someone crosses a line with you and you let it slide, you teach them that your boundaries aren't real. Immediate consequences don't have to be violent or cruel. They can be as simple as cutting access, withdrawing trust, or clearly saying, "This will not happen again." What matters is speed and consistency. Law 3: mystery increases fear. Vader's unpredictability made him even more frightening. No one knew exactly what he would do. Sometimes he tolerated mistakes, sometimes he executed without warning. That uncertainty kept people constantly on edge. Application: predictability kills authority. If everyone knows exactly how you'll react, they can calculate how to push your limits. But when you maintain an element of mystery, whether through restraint, selective words, or controlled unpredictability, you force people to approach you with caution. Mystery makes others hesitate before testing you. These 3 laws, silence, consequences, and mystery, explain why Vader was so effective at embodying fear. They are the foundation of fear-based authority, and they work because they speak directly to human instincts, our fear of the unknown, our desire to avoid pain, and our inability to forget consequences. But as powerful as they are, they also come with risks. And that's where the transformation begins, when we decide how to use this knowledge without falling into tyranny ourselves. Now imagine what happens when you understand these laws of fear. You don't need to become a tyrant. You don't need to crush everyone around you. But you stop being ignored. You stop being walked over. You stop being the person others feel free to dismiss. Instead of explaining yourself endlessly, you use silence strategically. A pause, a steady gaze, a refusal to fill the air with excuses. People will feel the weight of that silence far more than they would your words. Instead of letting boundaries slide, you enforce them immediately. No more saying, "It's fine," when it isn't. No more giving endless second chances that teach others to disrespect. By acting with clarity and speed, you show that your limits are real, and real limits command respect. And instead of being completely predictable, you embrace a touch of mystery. You don't reveal every thought. You don't announce every plan. You let people wonder. And that wondering makes them cautious, more careful in how they deal with you. This is the transformation. You move from being the person who asks for respect to the person who receives it naturally, from someone who feels invisible to someone who radiates authority without shouting. That doesn't mean ruling through terror. It means understanding that respect is built on clear signals, and fear, when used strategically and ethically, isn't about cruelty. It's about clarity. It's about teaching others what you will and will not allow. The lesson of Vader isn't to become a monster. It's to realize that presence, boundaries, and mystery are far stronger tools of influence than begging for approval ever will be. Here's the kind of power that doesn't just silence a room. It changes how people see you forever. Darth Vader wasn't just a villain in a galaxy far, far away. He was the perfect embodiment of fear as a tool of power. His silence, his presence, his unpredictability, each was a weapon sharper than any blade. He proved that fear doesn't need to scream to dominate. It only needs to exist. But the true lesson is this: fear can build empires, but it cannot build loyalty. It commands obedience, but it isolates the leader. It is fast, effective, and absolute, but it always carries a hidden cost. So let's remember the three laws of fear. Silence speaks louder than words. Presence can say more than speeches. Consequences must be immediate. Boundaries only exist when they are enforced. Mystery increases fear. Predictability kills authority. Uncertainty protects it. With these principles, you don't need to rule through terror. You only need to stop giving away your power. You don't need to crush others. You only need to stop allowing yourself to be crushed. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think fear creates stronger leaders than respect? Or does respect outlast fear? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading them carefully. And if this video gave you new insights, hit subscribe, because in the next episode, we'll explore another villain. Until then, remember this: power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it breathes quietly in the corner of the room, and everyone feels it. Stay strategic, stay clear, stay powerful.